Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Silmarillion fic from Archive of Our Own by Aeolian Sands, called The Rescue Party. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. The Rescue Party by Aeolian Sands, Chapter 30, and our meeting shall be glad. It was near midnight when the storm that Maedhros had felt in the atmosphere broke over Beleriand. Lightning split the sky, and thunder rumbled deep and low as the rain came down in sheets. In Gondolin, Fingon was twisting and turning in a restless sleep. To the sound in Nargothrond, Fingolfin swung his sword in repetitive motions. Over and over again he practiced alone in a small room beside the armory. Celebrimbor was in his rooms, sketching by lamplight a new design for an arrowhead that could pierce the scales of dragons. Maedhros and Luthien were drenched to the bone and huddled together in a small cave just a few miles north of the underground city, the daughter of Melian singing softly to ward away the cold of the night. And in Doriath, deep in the caverns of Menegroth within the royal library, Galadriel and Maglor stared at each other like aggravated cats. Both were wide awake, and the light in the library was bright as the day. They each held a stack of 5 heavy volumes overhead, while Melian sat across from them in a leather armchair casually flipping through a songbook. "Come on, Gano. Just give up already," Galadriel hissed through gritted teeth, her arms beginning to shake. Melian had given them the books, and had said to hold them aloft, proclaiming that the first one to lower his or her arms, or let a book drop, would lose. It had already been half an hour. "Not on my life, cousin," Maglor replied, but he knew that his own strength was failing. What was the point? Over the past several days, Melian had led them in exercise after exercise that encompassed everything from healing to meditation. Her methods were unorthodox, but Maglor had felt himself becoming stronger. He was now able to tune some of the Lamassu, or power given to him by Namo. He could set broken bones with his voice and sing to the trees. Not that they were inclined to listen to him, but Melian had considered it a start. And now they were holding books over their heads like elflings dealt a punishment. Was it a punishment? His arms began to shudder with the effort, the blood now drained completely from his hands. Suddenly he caught a hint of a song. Looking up, he saw a small yellow flower in a pot on a nearby table. He could hear its small voice cheering him on in its own tongue. Maglor closed his eyes and focused on the bright, cheerful melody. The little voice was a much-needed distraction, and Maglor followed it till he heard the deeper harmony of the hewn marble caves around him. He allowed his fear to sink deeper into the song till he couldn't feel the pain in his arms any longer.
"Of course you can distract yourself from pain. You distracted yourself from your brother's pain for 30 years. Your heart was already stone when you killed at Alkolonde."
A discordant note wormed into his mind. Maglor felt his arms falter. But then he remembered Melian's previous lessons on how condemnation was from the enemy, and how bowing to it only served the darkness. Yes, he mentally sank back at the discord. But my brother has forgiven me. And I do the Teleri no favors if I let Moringatta reign over their kin in Endor. Begone, foul and discordant song! At once the deeper, truer music of Arda swelled, and Maglor sang with it in his spirit. He did not realize that Galadriel had dropped her books until Melian physically pulled his arms down, waking him from his trance. "Good, Gano. You have come far in your lessons," Melian praised him. Galadriel huffed. Easier for him to immerse himself in the Song of Air. I didn't receive any power from Namo. Melian arched an eyebrow. Maybe. But then is every person meant to solve a problem in the same way? This challenge was for the both of you, but it was not meant to be overcome with a common method. What are your gifts, daughter of Finarfin? Muckler was sure the "I am not a kinslayer" comment was coming, but Galadriel finally showed some restraint. "Well," she began, "Osanwe and Foresight." The Maya nodded. "Different gifts are given to different individuals. Maglor and Luthien are both singers, in tune with nature. When my daughter dances and sings, she can release spring with her voice. But you, my dear, have something truly unique. You can touch the minds of the children. You do not need a marriage bond to offer them encouragement. You need not to be close to give hope to the downtrodden and to the weary." This was when Maglor saw a sudden light in his cousin's fair eyes, and he realized that it was at this moment, at midnight in the library of Menegroth, beneath the dark and stormy night sky that bore no stars, that Artanis had grasped her destiny. "Oh," Galadriel said simply. She looked at Maglor then, and her eyes seemed to be swimming in memory of a more simple past. She then closed them, and Feanor's son dared not interrupt her thoughts. Galadriel reached out across Beleriand, throwing her mental shields wide open to see far and wide. She gasped at the constellations before her. Feanor! He was reborn indeed, and pushing northward, a blazing star in the darkness. But, what was more, her mind touched her parents as they slept. In Nargothrond! Her mother and father had come back for them. Galadriel nearly collapsed in joy, but she steeled herself. "I love you," she whispered to both of them, and like twin embers, she felt their fear leap at her words. She smiled softly then, but her peace was fleeting, since at once she felt the fires of all three of her brothers. "Aiganaro!" she cried. "Angarato!" To her great surprise, Angarato answered her. "Artanis? How are you speaking? Where are you?" "A long story. I am learning from Lady Melian in Doriath. I am here now. How are you alive?" "Namo sent us back. Our uncles are here as well, and Irisa too. I believe Bitio and Elenwe and Arakano will get re-embodied soon as well. Listen, Artanis, we are preparing for war." Galadriel swallowed. "No. Let the Feanorians fight. This has always been their fight. Not ours." "If I do not fight, what type of world will my granddaughter inherit? We came to build kingdoms. We must defend those kingdoms." "You are spending too much time with Kurofinwe for your words to imitate eloquent persuasion." "But do I not speak the truth? Fight with us, sister. I do not know how you are doing this, but if you can reach our people without a marriage bond, then we will sorely need you when the darkness falls. Come to Nargothrond. Finduhas will be delighted." Galadriel paused. She did not want to admit it to herself, but she was afraid. Afraid that, amidst the shining swords of her brothers, she would appear lesser than they. Yet maybe, just maybe, Melian's words were true, and her worth did not lie with blades of steel. I won't abandon you, Angarato," he whispered through Osanwe. And with that solemn promise, Galadriel felt her strength leave her. She collapsed and opened her eyes to see that Maglor was at her side, looking at her with genuine concern. "The dead are returning, and the Noldor prepare for war," she said quietly. "Kano, your father, I saw him marching north. And my brothers are in Nargothrond with Ingolda, and my parents, and even Uncle Nolofinwe." Melian stood with a rustle of silks. "Then our season of learning and training is coming to an end. I wish we had more time, but we must make do with the time we have been given. Go, get some rest, both of you. The night grows darker still." Myron felt Melkor's unblinking stare as he knelt before the dark throne. The Silmarils in his master's crown cast ghoulish, flickering shadows to dance on the blackened walls.
"My lieutenant,"
Melkor addressed after several minutes of silence, his voice an unnatural rumble scraping over the halls of stone.
"you are bleeding."
Sauron did not flinch, but he cast golden eyes down to see that his right ankle bled where the shackle had dug into it. "Yes," he answered, not lifting his head.
It is unsightly.
Maron reached down and wiped the blood with his fingertips. Holding his hand to his lips, he licked the crimson drops. It tasted of metallic iron.
If you were an orc, I would not be surprised.
Melkor continued.
For orcs are little more than animals, and little can be expected of them. But you, Myron, you have always had care for your appearance. Why come before me now, in the dark hours of the night, with your own blood on your skin and hair damp from the rain? Can you not heal yourself? Can you not dry your own hair?
Martin swallowed, heart rate racing despite his strong will to remain composed. "I cannot." Melkor laughed, and it was like the whole mountain laughed with him.
Oh!
"I bear many tidings, my condition being the least of them. Know, Lord, that the whelp Feanor has returned from the grave. Know also that I have seen the city of Ondalinde, where the fool Turukano hides his face from thee. Know also that I have seen the city of Ondalinde, where the fool Turukano hides his face from thee." Melkor rose slowly.
Then why do you return to me empty-handed? It would have been a delight to display Turukano's head on the gates.
Mara knew he had no other choice other than the truth. "I captured Feanor and was bringing him to you when we travelled over Ondalinde itself. There I was assailed by the eagles of Manwe, and also by Eonwe. The fool managed to trap me in a single form and to strip me of all power of the spirit. I was brought to Mandus's halls, where I learned that the elves of the house of Finwë are being returned to the Roar. My servant, Thringwethil, aided my escape, but she could not free me from Eonwe's bonds." Sauron felt the temperature of the room rise by several degrees. Beads of sweat formed on his brow. Melkor walked towards him with a slow, deliberate footsteps that shook the foundations of Angband. On reaching Myron's kneeling form, he pressed a blackened hand to the side of his servant's face.
You are trembling.
Myron said nothing. The hand soothed the golden hair back. Then Melkor took a step back and laughed again.
Long have we agreed that the world has no use for failures and weak things, no matter how pretty. You have gall, Sauron, to come here and admit such defeat.
"I am loyal to you, my lord, and if you were the one to put me out of my misery and shame, then I would gladly not see tomorrow." Now that was a lie, and Myron knew it. The words were spoken with honey and echoed with something akin to bravery, but he deeply feared the emptiness of death. Melkor sat back on his iron throne.
You do not deserve to die by my hand. I would feed you to the orc captains.
Dumaya willed his heart to slow. "A reward they do not deserve. But do it, if you will. I will not fight my true master. Though let me first tell you the secret of Ondalinde. Then you may watch the one most dedicated to you to be torn to pieces." Melkor's lips twitched.
Your silver tongue amuses me. Perhaps it can entertain me longer still. Tell me where the Noldor hide, and we can decide on a suitable punishment for your failures.
By the time Arian's rays kissed the earth, Myron could no longer support himself. He dangled weakly in chains suspended from the ceiling, blood oozing lazily from numerous whip marks on his bare back. Still, he had not been executed, so he counted the last night a success. He felt someone hold a wet rag to his lips and squeeze water into his parched mouth. Warily opening his eyes, he saw Thuri standing there.
"Oh, good. The idiot lives,"
she said. "I can say the same to you." She shrugged.
"I was not the one defeated by feathers. I, in fact, rescued you."
"Yet your thoughts are treasonous."
"Everyone's thoughts are treasonous. There is not an orc or Balrog that loves this place. You are the unique one on whom the stain of the Valar-inspired loyalty remains. The rest of us serve Melkor out of fear, and he knows it and cares not.
You are close to deserting.
He cares not. Had I left, he would have hunted me down, but in the end, I was just as cowardly as you.
She unlocked the manacles around Mairon's wrists and caught him before he fell to the floor.
And now your mortal blood is all over my dress,
she growled, laying him face down on a bench attached to the cell wall. He began to clean his wounds with brutal efficiency. Mairon couldn't help but chuckle to himself. Thought it was funny when she was angry. As dawn broke over the forested hills of Dauren Faroth, Madros woke to find Luthien nowhere to be found. He immediately regretted agreeing to let her take morning watch. Then a pine cone hit his head. Looking up, he saw the princess in the high branches of an evergreen fir tree. She waved at him with a guilty smile. Sindar and their trees, he grumbled to himself.
What are you doing?
He asked in a loud whisper. Luthien elegantly leapt down the branches like some sort of wild squirrel.
I was keeping watch, silly,
she smiled. Madros rolled his eyes. Well, did you see any orc parties, or did they just see you?
No one saw me, she protested, and I saw no orcs. But, she winked, I did see an empty animal trap.
All right, well, in that case, you can wait out here for dinner to arrive while I go to Nargothrond.
You Fëanorians are too short-sighted. Won't you think for 1 second?
Madros didn't admit that had she replaced Fëanorians with the more accurate younger brothers, then her words would have been a direct quote from his own mouth. Yet he still didn't follow. How was an animal trap going to be useful when they could be in Nargothrond before lunch?
I think it is your brother's, Gilligorm's trap,
Luthien said. Ah, now he understood. Gilligorm was out for his morning walk in the area around Nargothrond, checking the traps he had set the night before and ensuring that no orc parties had crept too close in the night. He had just rounded a curve in the trail when suddenly a desperate female voice called out, "Help me! Help!" From between the trees, Varda herself came running at him. No, not Varda. Gilligorm's breath hitched. It wasn't Eleth, but her beauty rivaled that of the Queen of Stars. And he was at once stricken by her. "Help!" she repeated in a voice that sounded like silver bells. "Please, sir, you have to help me. My friend's hand has been caught in a claw trap." The lady was trembling before him, and tears glistened on her pale face. And Gilligorm was immediately moved to pity and action, for never could he leave such a beautiful and helpless young lady without aid. He reached out and put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, fair maiden. We can set your friend free. My people have refuge here, and we have many healers. I am sure she will be all right. Such traps are not meant to slice limbs." The girl grabbed his hand in answer and quickly led him through the forest, and Gilligorm's thoughts focused only on helping her and saving her poor friend. "Just around that bend," the lady with the hair like night told him after a short run. "Don't fret, we're coming!" Gilligorm called out to the friend, believing this friend to be as fair and beautiful of a maiden as one leading him now. He raced around the curve in the trail, eager as a hound to get to this unknown lady's side. "I will help you!" And so determined was Gilligorm to help that he almost forgot to look up. Unfortunately, when he finally did, it was not the pretty elf maid he had been expecting. No. Lying there on his stomach, with his head buried in the nook of his elbow, one handless arm extended towards a closed claw trap, his whole body shaken with suppressed laughter, was someone neither pretty nor female. "See!" the Eleth cried. "My friend's hand! Oh, kind hunter, his hand is missing! You're so valiant to rescue him!" And she grasped Gilligorm's arm with both hands and held on tight. Gilligorm became an elf lord frozen in time. His brain stopped working, and he wasn't sure whether to flee in abject mortification or simply die. Maedhros finally rolled over and for a moment was silent, until he gasped a great lungful of air. "Don't fret, I will save you." He paraphrased his brother's words and then wheezed. Gelgorm's face turned beet red, which only caused Maedhros to shake again as another laughing fit struck. This lasted for several moments, until the usually grave Lord of Himring found some semblance of his normal composure. They lay on the forest floor, chest heaving as he fought for his lost breath. At last, through tears, he said, "I now know how to summon Tuakko. All we have to do is to be a damsel in distress. Luthien, note this down. Tuakko comes immediately the minute he feels some fair girl is in need of saving, otherwise he is likely to ignore your pain completely." Gelgorm knew there was no coming back from this one today. He grabbed Maedhros' hand and pulled him to his feet. "Bastard!" he whispered in his brother's ear. "Usually my enemies accuse me of being an all too legitimate son of Fëanor," he said through his smile. "Have you met Princess Luthien, Thingol's daughter?" Gelgorm nearly choked. "Thingol's daughter?" Luthien just swayed happily on her feet, nodding. "Maedhros, you're a moron in more ways than one. Where's Makalore?" "I traded him for better company." Gelgorm huffed. "You just walked into Menegroth, chucked Ghana on Thingol's doorstep like a stray cat, and walked out with the princess?" Maedhros looked at the sky as if in thought. "Yeah, pretty much," he answered. "No," Luthien replied. "Truth to be told, he wasn't loath to depart with his brother. I wish I could have such a protective older sibling." "So he didn't want to chuck Makalore like a stray cat on Thingol's doorstep, but he did so after he saw you. By Valar, to think that he is making fun of me! I just wanted to help your friend, not sacrifice a sibling." That he is my friend," Luthien giggled. "But no, I left my father's kingdom in secret to follow Maedhros. He didn't trade Ghana. Mother took him in since he was ill." "You left to follow—" For the third time today, Gelgorm was on the verge of having a stroke. "Look at him! He's a grump! An old warhorse that would bite your ear for looking at him funny. Says the feral dog itself. At least this dog is wise enough not to go taking Thingol's daughter on excursions," Gelgorm grumbled. Then he sighed. "In any case, come, my lady. That was quite the storm last night, and you must yearn for some warm food and clean clothes. Let me show you the Noldor kingdom of Nargothrond." Thingol sat across from his brother on the private balcony of the king's rooms. He sipped the fine tea that he had been given and nibbled on the small pastries that a servant had provided. He was wearing silks in blue and silver of his father's house, but his hair was down, bereft of its usual golden ribbons. Turgon has insisted that they be washed with the rest of his clothes. He sighed and set his cup down. "You know what I told him when I followed him to the stables?" "Told who?" Turgon asked, confusion flickering across his face. "Our father, the night his wrath burned brighter than any star. To stay? Finno, I would have been there with you had I not my own responsibilities here." "Responsibilities? Are not your responsibilities to your people, your entire people?" "No. You are the High King. I am a king of Ondolinde. What did you expect me to do when the flames came? It is called the Battle of Sudden Flame for a reason. We had no time to amass our armies. Maybe not at first, but you could have tried to help us in the end. You could have sent healers. Instead, you remained mum in your gilded cage. And what if those healers had been captured and one of them told Moringoth where to find us? My people would then all perish. I must do what I can to protect them. Since when did you become a Fëanor the Second?" "Excuse me?" Turgon asked, and his voice echoed with warning. Yet Fingon pressed on. "Fëanor burnt the ships. He burnt the ships because he believed that his small subset of followers was enough to take Moringoth alone. He did not care what happened to the rest of us. And as a result, Elenwed died, as did so many others. If one's responsibilities are to his followers alone, and if one's followers alone can stand against the enemy, then by that logic, our uncle did little wrong when he burned those boats and expected us to stay in Valinor." Turgon's eyes burned into him, but Fingon knew he must hold his ground. If he could not face his younger brother, then how could he be expected to face the enemy? "You do not know what you speak," Turgon growled. "I do. Turu, what do you think is going to happen?" That I will defeat Morinkoto without you? Then when the sun is shining and rainbows and wildflowers abound, you will walk out of your fortress? I tell you the truth, I am not nearly so strong. No! The only chance we have at winning this war against a Vala is if we stand together. Do not leave me to die alone. Do not wait until our kingdom lie in ruins to exchange your fine clothes for armor. You may think that you are serving your people by staying out of this war, but you are only sealing their dreadful doom. If one more Noldor prince falls, be it Findarato or Madras or myself, we are, all of us, finished. Turgon stood and went to lean over the balustrade. I wasn't waiting for you to fall, he said quietly, staring at the mountains. You forget that it was Ulma who instructed me to build this city. He will instruct me when to leave it. Suddenly, there was a sound of shouting and something rolling down the roof above them. Fingon grabbed the tea kettle just in time to save it from being obliterated by the falling body that tumbled off a roof above. The High King stared in shock what appeared to be a shirtless man now laying amidst shattered pieces of table.
What was that for?
The shirtless one demanded, standing and shouting at someone still on the roof. Then Fingon saw the scales on his body and a fierce light in his eyes. Osse? That was your cue! Someone who sounded quite annoyed answered. The shirtless being turned and nodded to them both.
Findegano, Turkana. My lord and master Ulmo says that now is the time to evacuate the city.
He smiled and attempted to bow, but at once winged Enwe was there and had his fellow Maya in a headlock.
What?
Osse's muffled voice was heard from where he was struggling under Enwe's arm. You make a poor herald.
I never asked to be one!
Osse finally managed to wrench his head free. Only centuries of dealing with younger siblings and cousins allowed Fingon to keep a straight face. Surprisingly, his first thought was that the Maiar before him reminded him a bit too much of his family, and that was concerning. Evacuate? Turgon asked, his eyebrows having disappeared into his hairline.
Yes, before my friend, Eanwa here, saw fit to push me off the roof, I heard you say you were waiting for Lord Ulma to tell you when to leave the city. Well, it just so happens that I bring word that now is the time to leave the city.
Turgon stared at Fingon, who held his hands up. The High King has nothing to do with our coming, Eanwa defended him. Sauron, who I fought on these very fields, has returned to his master. He will reveal its location to the one called Moringoto. You must flee. The women and children should go to Doriath. Melian will allow them through her protective spells. Those who will fight shall meet with the armies of the enemy in the northern mountains when they come to siege the city. With all due respect, my lord, are the chains of the Valar so weak as not to hold a single servant of our foe? The grass has not yet grown over the crater from your fight, and now I hear the Sauron is free? Turgon asked, suddenly uncharacteristically venomous. Enwe's mouth twitched. If you must know, King Turgano, I let him go in exchange for the life and safety of your nephew, Lomion, who rests now in Valinor. Fingon felt a sudden desire to dive for cover. Turgon was a volcano on the verge of eruption. Osse swung one arm over the young king's shoulder, seemingly unafraid of playing with fire.
Deep breaths, Elven King, deep breaths. It is good for one of your kin to return to Undying Lands. Long have you prayed for this to be permitted.
Turgon elbowed Osse off of him like he was Aragorn and not a divine being. And how did he get there? Can Fëanor fly now? It'll save us all. Where is Laurfindle, Ecthelion, and Rog? Enwe's face softened. I see we have much to discuss. Let's go inside to tell the full story. The blond and tall servant of Manwe led them to Turgon's study. He made sure that everyone was seated, then told how Thuringwethil, a servant of Sauron, had come upon the group as they were returning to the secret city. This servant had taken Maeglin captive and had flown him to Valinor, where she had used the young elf to bargain for her master. And so I set Sauron free, but he is still bound to near mortal form. He cannot shapeshift or use his powers. Turgon felt ill. Fingon, being his pious self, was nodding along with the entire story, but Turgon was struggling with just how easily Enwe had forfeited Ondalinde's safety. Surely there was another way. Could he not have fought this servant? Then he chastised himself for thinking such blasphemy. Maybe he was like Fëanor after all. He was certainly annoyed with the Ainur today. So this means Irise and Uncle Naro are going to Angermund for nothing? Fingon mentioned. What in the name of Eru? Irise, my sister, alive? Going to Angermund? This just keeps getting better and better. What's next? Cousin Artanis has turned into a star? Aunt Lalwende has slayed Gothmog and decided not to tell anyone? I didn't realize Irise lived, he spoke up, fighting to keep his voice level. Yes, she meant to come here but did not want to abandon her son, Fingon answered. Turgon swallowed. So, to be clear, my sister and feral uncle are marching to the gates of hell together with 3 of my lords. My nephew has defied doom and returned to the blessed realm. Anything else I should know? My glory is in Doriath. We met Maedhros on the way here, and he told us so, Fingon mentioned. Kinslaying cousins in Doriath. Fantastic. And he lives still? Yes, our father does too. Irise says that he returned. He has indeed, Oss announced. I was the one that helped Nolofinwe, Fëanor and Arafinwe across the sea. It was innocent fun until the wives decided that they wished to follow. Turgon felt the blood leave his face. The what? Your mother is here in Beleriand, Eärwe answered gently. Even she prepares for war along with Nerdanel and Eärwen. No. Not Amila too, and father. He put his head in his hands and took a shuddering breath. Too much was happening at once. But amidst the unrelenting news being tossed his way, one thing stood out. The time really has come, he said to himself. For a long minute he said no words. Then, lifting his face, Turgon stared into the eyes of the 2 Maiar and his older brother. He smiled grimly. I see that it is indeed time for the world to see the might of Ondalind. Eärwe, my lord? Yes, Eärwe stood. You shall help me meet my fate? Ondalinda's fate rests on the gamble you made when you released that cruel creature called Sauron. Come rivers of fire, I shall aid you. And you, Finnegano? I shall return to Hithlum and prepare my men, but we shall meet again, brother, and our meeting shall be glad. End of chapter 30. Stay tuned.